Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Samastajana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkripatamaham Vande Paramanandamadhavam Paramanandamadhavam. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmiham. The self is Purna, Akhanda. It is full, infinite, complete, without any break. It doesn't have parts. It doesn't have any kind of limitation. That was the first topic which was discussed in the last session. Two examples were given by Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji. First example was that of space. How the space, though appears to be limited because of the different walls, still it remains akhanda, without break. In the same way, the self, though appears to be broken into different beings because of the walls of different upadhis, it is actually unbroken. So, Ghata, Kalasha, Kusula, Suchi, Mukhyehi, example was given. Ghata, pot, Kalasha, pitcher, Kusula, storehouse, a room. Suchi is the needle, the eye of the needle. In all these, because of these conditionings, say space appears to be different. Very little space in that needle of the eye, little bigger space in pot, little bigger in the pitcher, much bigger in the storeroom. But actually space is space. Space doesn't have concept of small or big. Actually speaking, if you think, why? Because we saw last time space is the subtlest of the elements, and therefore actually it doesn't get broken by anything, right? But it appears that way because of misunderstanding, because of its identification, we can say, because of its association with different kinds of upadhis. But actually the space has not broken itself. In the same way, space, self also, in the same way, self also, dehendriya pranamano ahamadivihi, by different upadhis, it appears to be broken, but is not broken. So when we say that the self is not broken, though appears to be so in upadhis, what does it mean? It means that the upadhis are not real. For the self, upadhis are not real. That is what is said next. Brahmadistamba paryantaha mrishamatra upadhayaha. Mrishamatra. All these conditionings, right from the upadhi of Brahmaji, the creator, up to stamba, up to a stump of wood. Means what? From most significant to the most insignificant. From the top to bottom, all the upadhis are mrishamatra. You see, this is called the power of Vedanta, you see. We are saying even the upadhi of Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesha, Ganesha, everybody's upadhi is mrishamatra. Unreal. Right? Tatah purnam swamatmanam pashyed ekātmana sthitam. What we should see tatah thereafter purnam swamatmanam. The self, one's own self, which is purna, infinite, complete, unbroken, ekātmana sthitam, staying as oneself. That is what we should see. Now, when the topic of upadhis being unreal comes, Shankaracharya brings the other example of rope and snake. Yatra bhrantya kalpitam yad viveke tat matram naiva tasmat vibhinnam. Whenever something is imagined by delusion on something, then that imagined thing is actually the substratum alone on which it is imagined. Not different from it. Na tasmat vibhinnam. Bhranter nashe. When the delusion goes away, bhati drishta ahi tattvam. Then we realize what? That the ahi, the snake which was imagined, was actually rajju eva, rajjuhu. Tadvat vishwam atmaswarupam. In the same way, the world which is imagined on the self, because we are saying that the world is not real, what does it mean? That the world is the self, the substratum alone, is not different from it. Earlier also this topic we have taken. Is world unreal or is world Brahman? Both. First we understand that the world is not real. Then we understand that the world is not real means what? What is the reality? The reality is Brahman or Atman, which is the substratum. Now when we say like this, then what happens? Then the self is actually understood as Purna. Means what? Presence or absence of upadhis does not create any kind of difference, distinction in the self. This is also clear, I hope. Now, first we said that the self remains unbroken with upadhis or without upadhis. Then we came to a point that therefore the upadhis are not real. Then what? Then that means self alone is. There is nothing other than self. Now that is what is explained in the 4 verses that also we have seen in the last session, 389 and 390. These 2 verses are giving the Shruti Pramana to say that self alone is the reality. Swayam Brahma, Swayam Vishnu, Swayam Indra, Swayam Shiva, Swayam Vishwamidam Sarvam, Swasmadanyanna Kinchana. There is nothing other than me. Everything that is seen, everything that is not seen, everything that is pursued, everything is self alone. Antaswayam chapi bahiswayam cha. Swayam purastat, swayam eva paschat, swayam hi avacham, swayam api udiccham, tatha uparishtat, swayam api adhastat. I alone am inside, I alone am outside, I am in front, I am behind, I am on the south, right direction, I am on the north, on the left side, I am above, I am below, everything is me alone. This is what Shruti says. We saw in Mundaka Upanishad, Brahmaivedam amrutam purasthat, Brahma paschat, Brahma dakshinatah, cha uttarena, adascha urdvam cha prasrutam, Brahma eva, idam vishwam, idam varishtham. This is the quote from Mundakopanishad. From that, Bhagavan Shankaracharya has taken this idea and given. You see, Shruti says so. Now you apply Yukti. Next verse, 391, he has explained Yukti. Logic is explained. And whenever logic has to be explained, example has to be brought in. So he has brought now the example of water. He says, Taranga, wave, phena, foam, brahma, whirlpool, budbudadi sarvam, and the bubbles, everything, swarupena jalam yatha. Just as by nature, all these things are water alone. Tatha, in the same way, chideva, consciousness alone is dehadi ahamantametat sarvam. Starting from body up to ego, all the upadhis, everything is chit alone, consciousness alone. Chid eva ekarasam vishuddham. That consciousness alone is one homogeneous, extremely pure entity, reality. There is nothing other than it. Brought the topic of chit. Okay, now the topic of sat. So chit was brought in to show that all the upadhis in an individual are chit alone. Now with respect to the world, he brings that sat. Sat and chit are same only, but different aspects he is bringing. Sade vedam sarvam jagadavagatam vang manasayoho. Whatever is seen, whatever is understood in the whole world, sadeva idam sarvam. Everything is that existence alone. Satonyannasteva prakriti parisim nisthitavatah. There is nothing in the world which is other than existence. Right? Prakriti parisim nisthitavatah. Up to the extent of Maya, whatever is there, everything is that existence alone. Prithak kim ritsnaya brings back the same example, but in a different way. There that ghata, kalasha, etc. was explained as the space inside. Now here what he says, prithak kim ritsnaya kalasha ghata kumbhadyavagatam. Whatever is known as kalasha, pitcher, ghata, jug, or kumbha, pot, all these things are what? Prithak kim ritsnaya. Are they any different from the clay, mud? They are all mud alone. Vadatyesha bhrantah. So the person who says that this is different, that is different, that is different, is bhrantah, is a deluded person. Tvam aham iti maya madiraya. He creates the difference that you are there, I am there, and he, she, and they are all different. Why does he do so? Maya madiraya. Because of intoxication of Maya. Because he has drunk the wine of Maya. He is deluded. And therefore, the deluded person is creating difference. Actually, there is no difference. Right? That is what is said. So, again we have seen there are many places where, now this particular verse is called as Anubhuti, Vidvat Anubhuti. What was to be proved? Self alone is everything. And how, what is the method of proving it? Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. So first he gave the reference to Shruti. Then he gave example to explain through logic how wave and bubbles and everything is water alone. In that same way, all that you see is self alone, chit alone. And then Anubhuti, what is the experience of a wise person, of a realized person, that is explained in this verse 392 that we have seen. Sadevedam sarvam jagat. Sat alone is everything. The entire world is that existence alone. Okay. Now when we say that self alone is, what does it mean? It means that there is nothing other than it. There is no duality. There is one very beautiful verse. I must have quoted it before also. Somebody once asked Shankaracharya, Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya, can you summarize the entire teaching of Vedanta, entire teaching of Veda in one verse? And Shankaracharya said, why one verse? I will do it in half a verse. Shlokardhena pravakshami yaduktam grantha kotibhi Let me tell you in half a verse what is said by crores of granthas, crores of texts. What is that? Brahma satyam, jagan mithya, jivo brahmaiva na aparaha. It's a very important verse. The entire summary is there. Brahma satyam, jagan mithya, jīvaḥ brahmaiva na aparaha. Brahman alone is the reality. The world is unreal. And Jiva is Brahman alone, not different from it. Now we have just now understood Brahma Satyam. Self alone is the reality. Now what? Jagan Mithya, there is no duality. That is what explained in the next few verses. Let us see. Verse number 393 explains how there is no duality. Kriyāsamabhihāreṇa yatra nānyaditi śrutiḥ bravīti dvaitarāhityaṃ mithyādhyāsanivṛttaye kriyāsamabhihāreṇa yatra nānyaditi śrutiḥ bravīti dvaitarāhityaṃ mithyādhyāsanivṛttaye. You gave me quotations of Shruti which tell that self alone is reality. Okay. Then what about the world? There is no world. There is no duality. Let me tell you this also by Shruti only. Kriyāsamabhihāreṇa, by a string of verbs. Kriya here means verb. Kriya pada, verb. By a string, samabhihāreṇa, by a string of verbs, yatra na anyat iti śrutiḥ. The Shruti starts with yatra na anyat. This is common phrase and then it goes on adding verbs. Okay, what is it? It is from Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 7. Yatra na anyat pashyati, na anyat shrunoti, na anyat vijanati, sabhūma, atha yatra anyat pashyati, anyat shrunoti, anyat vijanati, tadalpam, yo vai bhūma tadamritam, atha yadalpam tad martyam, sabhagavah, kasmin pratishtite iti sve mahimne yadiva na mahimne iti. 7th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad gives. So what does that Shruti telling? Yatra, that where na anyat shrunoti. A person doesn't hear anything else. Na anyat pashyati, doesn't see anyone else. Na anyat vijanati, doesn't consider anyone else. Sabhūma is infinite. Whereas yatra anyat shrunoti, where a person hears something else, sees everything else, thinks of something else, that is alpam, that is limited. And then the Upanishad will go on to say, yo vai bhūma tat sukham na alpe sukham asti. That which is infinite is bliss. There is no joy, there is no permanent happiness in limitedness. So through this Shruti, what is Shruti saying? That there is nothing else. There is nothing that you can hear, there is nothing that you can see, there is nothing that you can think of. Why? Because there is nothing other than you. So through the series, through a beautiful garland of verbs, the Shruti is telling what? Bravīti dvaitarāhityaṃ. It speaks of, Shruti speaks of dvaitarāhityaṃ, absence of duality. For what? Mithyādhyāsanivṛttaye. In order to remove this false superimposition. Mithya false, adhyasa superimposition, nivṛttaye in order to remove. So if you see something else, negate it. Negate it with your vision. Why? Because there is nothing else. So in order to remove this false superimposition, seeing many where there is only single self, In order to remove this false superimposition, Shruti gives a series of verbs and explains that there is nothing that is other than the self. There is absolutely no duality. When we study other philosophies, we will understand the significance and importance of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta actually. Why? Because Advaita Vedanta is the only philosophy which says that there is single reality. No other philosophy accepts it. You see, Sankhya, they will accept two realities. Isn't it? Dvaita philosophy also, they will accept two realities. It's only Advaita Vedanta which says that there is only one reality. There are also philosophies which say there is no reality. Shunyavada, there is nothing. By fluke we are here, somehow we are living. But when everything goes, there will be nothing. So the significance of this, proving this point that there is no duality. And you see, it is so, what we can say, revolutionary in a way that you are talking to somebody else and you are saying that there is no duality. Remaining in the realm of duality, when the Upanishads tell us that there is no duality, there can be nothing more powerful than that. Right? So, there is absolutely no duality. Then what? Brahman alone is. Though the duality appears to be there, Brahman is not even touched by it. Why? Because for Brahman, there is no duality. Now, this is the vision that we have to bring in our life. See, when we say there is no duality, then what? Then it goes on all levels. You cannot discriminate between people. You cannot put somebody as down or lower and somebody as higher. You cannot say that that is different, I am different. No, everything has to become one, no? So this vision of oneness is the most important, probably the vision that is required for today's time. Where everything, the whole world is trying to divide, trying to see different things. It is this vision of oneness which will bring everyone together. Not just on an experiential level, but on a philosophical level also. Not just on talking level, that we say from stage that the entire India is one, etc. No, we should actually feel it. And that can be brought only by people who are rooted in Advaita Vedanta. Okay? So that is what we have to always be aware of. That this is what we believe in and this is what is truth. So that should show in our life also. Then there is point in studying. We just now in few verses before we saw how knowledge and dispassion or detachment has to go hand in hand. Now this knowledge has to create that kind of change in our life, where we drop our likes and dislikes, where we drop this petty-minded thinking of seeing people different and creating division. Oh, you are from North India, I am from South India, and within South India also there are 4 states. Now within each state also there is North Kerala and South Kerala, and within, how long we are going to keep dividing? Then you are from that family and I am from this family and I am in this caste, and within one family also I belong to this father. And you are that, you are my father's brother's son. Even same siblings also we will create. No, I am the elder son, you are the younger son. How long we are going to keep dividing? I am the self, you are the self. We are one and the same. This vision has to be brought in. Okay, so that is what the Upanishads are also telling through a series of verbs, that there is no duality. Brahman alone is. What is the nature of that Brahman? Explained in the next verse. ākāśavannirmalanirvikalpaṃ niḥsīmaniḥspandananirvikāram antarbahiḥśūnyamananyamadvayaṃ svayaṃ paraṃ brahma kimasti bodhyam ākāśavannirmalanirvikalpaṃ niḥsīmaniḥspandananirvikāram antarbahiḥśūnyamananyamadvayaṃ svayaṃ paraṃ brahma kimasti bodhyam. The Brahman, the supreme reality, the self is ākāśavat, is like space. What way like space? Nirmala nirvikalpam, without any impurity and without any difference. Why without any impurity? Because nothing can touch it. Something can become dirty when it touches. Isn't it? You have put cloth for drying, okay, on a rope, and the ground is dirty. As long as the cloth is not touching the ground, or the dirt of the ground is not touching the cloth will remain pure. When will it become impure? When the dirt touches that cloth. So either the cloth falls or wind brings the dirt to the cloth, then it will become dirty. Since nothing can touch space, it is absolutely impeccable. There is no impurity. Nirvikalpam, there is no difference. Why? Again the same reason, subtle. Nothing can create difference in it. Nothing can divide it, break it. Niḥsīma, there is no limit. There is no boundary. Sima means boundary. Niḥsīma, there is no boundary. Niḥspandana, there is no movement. Space cannot move. Pavam thing. It's not like us, When we are on the, suppose we are not well and we are in the hospital, etc., and we cannot move, have we become very restless? The space is from such a long time, it is just standing. Can't even say standing, it is just there. Can't move. Why? Where will it move? It's already everywhere. Where will it move? It cannot move. Nirvikaram, it cannot change into anything. That thousands of years ago space was blue and today space is red. Nothing, no change. Why? No quality. Nothing can touch. Now what? Imagine if space itself is like this, then the self is even more subtle. It is truly nirmala, truly nirvikalpa, truly niḥsīma, truly niḥspandana, truly nirvikara. What do you mean, Veji? Truly means what? See, when it is said nirmala, there is one problem with space. One mala is there. What? That it is in the limit of ignorance. Nirvikalpa, when it is said there is without any difference, there is one difference is there. What? That the self is different from it. Why? Because it is not real. Space is not real. Niḥsīma, yes, it is limitless. In the what we say, in the context of ignorance, yes, it is niḥsīma. But in the truer context, it is not niḥsīma, it has limitation. Even the space. Why? Because it will end. That's why niḥspandana, it will not have movement. Nirvikara, it is not truly without modification. It will have one modification. What? Vinashyati. That last modification will be there. Space also will end. Ākāśavat example is given on the level of Vyavaharika Satta. On the Vyavaharika Satta, space is all these things. But on the Paramarthika Satta, self alone is all these things. Nirmala, Nirvikalpa, Niḥsīma, Niḥspandana, Nirvikara. Same, it continues. Antah bahihi shunyam. Without any concept of inside and outside. For space also it is same in Vyavarika Satta, but for self it is absolute also true. Antarbahiḥśūnyam, ananyam, ananyam, na anyam, there is no second, there is nothing other. Anyam na asti, there is nothing other than it. Non-different. Advayam, non-dual. Non-different, non-dual. Swayam param brahma, I alone am that supreme Brahman which is of this nature. Kimasti bodhyam, what else is there to be known? What else is to be what else is there to be known? This alone is the truth. What? The world is unreal and Brahman alone is real. Now carefully if we see here, antarbahiḥśūnyam means what? There is no swagata bheda. Swagata bheda, the difference within the thing. Ananyam, non-different means there is no sajatiya bheda. There is nothing other than it which is of the same category. Sajatiya bheda is not there. And advaya, there is nothing else means what? There is nothing of other category also. So vijatiya bheda also is not there. I hope you remember these terms. Sajatiya, vijatiya, swagata bheda rahita. That is what is Brahman, and that Brahman is Swayam. I am that. Once you realize that I am that Brahman, kimasti bodhyam, what remains to be known? Now that is what Shankaracharya says. Vaktavyaṃ kimu vidyate'tra bahudhā. What else should I speak now? Didn't you get the point? Brahma satyam, jagan mithya. But vechi jivo brahmaiva na paraha. That is what he is going to say in the next verse. That jiva is Brahman alone. It is not different. That is what he says. Next verse, let us see. 395. Vaktavyaṃ kimu vidyate'tra bahudhā. Brahmaiva jīva svayaṃ. Brahmaitajjagadātataṃ nu sakalaṃ. Brahmādvitīyaṃ śrutiḥ. brahmaivāhamiti prabuddhamatayah. Santyaktabāhyāsputam. Brahmī bhūya vasanti. Santatachidanandatmanaitadruvam. Vaktavyaṃ kimu vidyate'tra bahudhā. Brahmaiva jīva svayaṃ. Brahmaitajjagadātataṃ nu sakalaṃ. brahmādvitīyaṃ śrutiḥ. brahmaivāhamiti prabuddhamatayah. santyaktabāhyāsputam. Brahmī bhūya vasanti santatachidanandatmanaitadruvam. Vaktavyaṃ kimu vidyate'tra bahudhā. Bahudhā, more and more. Atra, here in this topic, Vaktavyaṃ kimu vidyate. What is there to speak? About this, in this matter, what more is there to speak? What I want to say is, brahmaiva jīva svayaṃ. This individual who considers to be identified with gross body, subtle body, causal body is actually Brahman alone. Brahmaiva jīva svayaṃ. What about the world? Brahmaitajjagadātataṃ nu sakalaṃ. Etat sakalam jagat. This entire world, atatam, which is spread everywhere, brahmaiva. That also is Brahman alone. brahmādvitīyaṃ śrutiḥ. Shruti says, points out that Brahma is advitiya. Advitiya has many meanings. Okay, advitiya means sometimes we use in our colloquial language also. Na, ye to bahut adbhut hai. Advitiya means what? There is nothing like it. There is nothing like it. True, Brahman, there is nothing like Brahman, but there is nothing other than Brahman. Advitiyam. Dvitiyam nasti advayam. That's also another meaning. There is nothing other than Brahman. So Jiva is also Brahman. World, Jagat is also Brahman. And Brahman alone is, there is nothing other than Brahman. Brahmaivāhamiti. Brahmaivāhamiti. Iti prabuddhamatayah. Those wise people, enlightened people, prabuddhamatayah, who have realized what? Brahmaivāhamiti. I alone am Brahman. Those who have realized santyakta, who have given up, renounced santyakta, what? Bahyaha, outside things. Complete attachment to outside. Outside here means what? Anything other than Brahman. They have given up the attachment to. Those people, sputam brahmi bhuya vasanti. Sputam, perfectly. Brahmi bhuya, becoming Brahman, vasanti, they stay, they live. Means what? Realizing that I am Brahman, they remain as Brahman. How? Santata, ever. Chit, consciousness. Ananda, bliss. Atmana. They remain as the self which is of the nature of consciousness, bliss. Etat dhruvam. This is for sure. Means what? This is certain. This is the final truth. Ityesha mama matihi. That is what it means. This is my final conviction. Means what? There is absolutely no duality. We say that the topics are there, Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. Jiva the individual, Jagat the world, Ishvara the Lord. Jiva is also Brahman, Jagat is also Brahman, Ishvara is of course Brahman. Brahman alone is, there is nothing other than Brahman. Anybody who realizes that Brahman alone is and I am that Brahman, becomes Brahman and remains as Brahman. That's the final thing. That's what he says. Now, this is the final point of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the topic of Nirvikalpa Samadhi which is going on, right? Now, before concluding, he explains how that santyakta bahyaha is said. That they give up attachment to anatma, not self. Now, that is what Shankaracharya again. See, this is the beauty of Shankaracharya. After explaining all the philosophy and everything, no, he'll come and say, therefore you do this. You know what you have to do? You have to do this. If you do this, then you will get that. Now he comes back and says, therefore give up the attachment. Give up the attachment to body, mind, intellect. That's what he says. In next two verses, we will see one by one. Let us see verse number 396. Jahi malaMāyākośe'haṃdhiyotthāpitāśāṃ prasabhamanīlakalpe liṅgadehe'pi paścāt nigamagaditakirtim nityamanandamurtim svayamiti parichiya brahmarūpeṇa tishtha. Brahmarūpeṇa tishtha. Jahi malaMāyākośe'haṃdhiyotthāpitāśāṃ prasabhamanīlakalpe liṅgadehe'pi paścāt nigamagaditakirtim nityamanandamurtim svayamiti parichiya brahmarūpeṇa tishtha. Same point he brings. What? detach from the upadhis and realize the Supreme. Jahi. Jahi, give up. Ha dhatu means to give up. What do you mean jahi? What should I give up? malaMāyākośe'haṃdhiyotthāpitāśāṃ. malaMāyākośe, in the sheath which is full of dirt. malaMāyākośe, in the sheath which is full of mala, dirt. In that sheath, what are we talking about? We are talking about the body, okay? annamāyākośe. annamāyākośe is what is called here as malaMāyākośe. And you see beauty. When we were discussing about the Panchakosha, we understood that mayat pratyaya, that maya which comes at the end, is in two meanings. One is in the meaning of modification and another is in the meaning of full. Chinmaya means full of consciousness. Whereas Annamaya, in that annamāyākośe is modification of food. Pranamaya is modification of vital air, isn't it? So generally in that kosha concept, we are using that mayat pratyaya as modification. Now here he uses it in the meaning of full. What? malaMāyākośe, the sheath which is full of dirt, not modification of dirt. It is completely filled with dirt. And see, following the entire line of thinking that Shankaracharya has given in this Vivekachoodamani, he has described physical body as nothing other than dirt, isn't it? You write from, I think, verse number 76, 77, somewhere 92, everywhere, wherever the topic of gross body has come, he has explained it as dirty, filthy, stinky. You know, that is the way he has used. Now what? malaMāyākośe, in that body, ahaṃdhiyotthāpitāśāṃ, the desire or attachment born from the ahaṃdhiya. Ahaṃdhiya means from the sense of ego, from the sense of identification. In the gross body which is full of dirt, the desire or attachment which is born because of identification, jahi, give it up. Paschat, and afterwards what do? Prasabham, forcefully. What you do? Liṅgadehe'pi. Liṅgadehe is sukshma sharire. So annamāyākośe is over. Now pranamaya, manomaya, vijñānamaya together, which is called as sukshma sharira, liṅgadeha. In that also what you give up? What you give up? This asha, this desire or attachment which is born from the sense of identification. And how is this subtle body? Example is given, visheshana is given, adjective is given, anila kalpe, which is like anila. Anila means like air. What do you mean like air? You feel it, but you don't see it. That is how subtle body is. You feel it, mind, intellect, you feel, but you don't see. So, anila kalpe, which is like the air, in this subtle body also you give up all this attachment, etc. So, in the gross body, you give up all the attachment born out of identification, and later on in the subtle body also you do. Then what? Nigama gadita kirtim. Nigama is Vedas. Nischayena gamayati tattvam iti nigamaha. Nigam. That which surely takes a person to reality. That is called as nigama. Nigama gadita, praised. Kirtim, glory. The glory which is, that which is glorified, which is praised in the scriptures, Nityamanandamurtim. And how is it praised? It is Nityamanandamurtim. It is always of the nature of bliss. Svayaṃ iti parichaya. Please understand, realize that that which is praised in the scriptures is me. And realizing this, Brahma rupena tishtha. Tishtha, stay. Remain as what? As Brahman. So detach from the upadhis and realize the oneness with that Supreme Brahman. And then just remain there. That's what he says. Okay. Now, this malaMāyākośe'haṃdhiyotthāpitāśāṃ is called as Hetu Garbha Visheshana. Hetu Garbha means that which explains the cause. Visheshana is adjective. Means what? The point that he is making is Jahi malaMāyākośe'haṃdhiyotthāpitāśāṃ. That's the point that he is making. That you should give up the attachment to the gross body. Why should you give up attachment to the gross body, which is called as filthy body? Why? Because it is filthy. So the hetu, the reason is given within the world. See, by calling it malaMāyākośe'a, he has also said why one should give up the attachment. Why? Because it is malaMāyākośe'a. This kind of thing is called as Hetu Garbha Visheshana. The reason is within itself, within that world. Okay. Now, second you see liṅgadehe'pi. Now, this liṅgadeha is called as liṅgadeha. Liṅgadeha means subtle body, sukshma sharira. Why it is called as linga? Linga means indicator. It is indicator of life. Earlier also we have seen this, isn't it? How do you know whether a person is alive or not? Not based on gross body, but it is based on subtle body, because gross body will remain. But it is the subtle body which is the indicator of life. One way of explaining liṅgadeha. Also, that liṅgadeha is linga for Brahman. It also points out Brahman. Earlier also we have seen, no, pratibodha viditam. That which becomes a window towards to know that Brahman. Every single thought is a window. And where is the thought? The thought is in subtle body. So it becomes linga. It also tells whether the person is alive or not. It also points out that Brahman. That's why it is called as liṅgadeha. Now somebody will say, okay, malaMāyākośe'a is annamaya-kosha, that is sthula sharira. Okay. Liṅgadeha is sukshma sharira. What about karana sharira? See there, nityamanandamurtim. The word nityamanandamurtim is telling that it is not anandamaya-kosha, it is nityamananda Brahma. So by saying that you realize that Brahman which is nityamananda, it is also said that don't be attached to anandamaya-kosha or karana sharira. Right? So detach and attach. Detach from the upadhis and attach to the Supreme. That is what is said. Now, the same point he explains by bringing two beautiful words in the next verse and concludes the topic. And of course, whenever, see, he is giving upadesha, no, here, that you do this, jahi. Jahi is lot lakara, you do. And tishtha, you stay. You give up the attachment to all the upadhis and stay as Brahman, remain as Brahman. Now, of course, he has to bring the meter also. That's what he does. In the next one, he brings his favorite meter and my favorite also and concludes the topic. Let us read. Shavakaram yavat bhajati manujastavada śrutiḥ. परेभ्यः स्यात् क्लेशो जनन मरण व्याधि निलयः. यदात्मानं शुद्धं कलयति शिवाकारमचलम्. तदा तेभ्यो मुक्तो भवति हि तदाह श्रुतिरपि. Shavakāram yāvad bhajati manujastāvadashucihi parebhyasyāt klesho janana marana vyādhinilayah yadatmanam shuddham kalayati shivākāramachalam tada tebhyo mukto bhavati hi tadaha śrutiḥ. Yavat, as long as Shavakāram bhajati manujaha, as long as manujaha, a human being, is called as manuja because he is jayate, he is born from Manu. Manu is supposed to be the first being, no, first human being, no. So from everybody who is born from that Manu only. So manujaha yavat Shavakāram bhajati, as long as that human being worships. Bhajati, worships what? Shavakāram. Shavakāram, a dead body, corpse. Now you see, last verse he said that the body is malaMāyākośe'haṃdhiyotthāpitāśāṃ, okay, full of impurity. Now to he is calling it as corpse, dead body only. Why? Because actually the body is dead. It's the presence of the subtle body and therefore the reflection of consciousness which makes this body appear to be sentient. Otherwise the body is inert only. But as long as one is worshipping, maintaining, beautifying, attaching to this gross body which is like shava, tavad ashuchihi. So long, tavad, a person will remain impure. Ashuchihi. Filthy, dirty, that person will remain. Why? Parebhyasyāt kleshaha. Because then the person will have suffering from others. What kind of suffering? Janana, marana, vyādhinilayah. A house full of what? Janana, birth, marana, death, vyādhi, disease. In some texts, nirayaha also is there. Nirayaha, pathabheda is also there. So instead of janana, marana, vyādhi, nilayaha, in some books it is nirayaha. Nirayaha means hell. Niraya means hell. So klesha is what? Because this is the hell. What? Janana, marana, vyādhi, niraya. As long as you are attached to the body, so long there will be impurity and so long there will be what? There will be klesha, suffering from all these things. But yadatmanam shuddham. But when that person realizes, kalayati, thinks, Atmanam, thinks of oneself as Shuddham, pure, Shivākāram. Now what? Now the embodiment of auspiciousness. Earlier it was Shavākāram, now Shivākāram. Achalam, unmoving, immovable, tada tebhyaha muktaha bhavati. Then that person becomes freed from that. Tebhya means janana marana vyādhi. He becomes freed from that suffering. He becomes freed from the birth, death and diseases. He indeed tadaha śrutiḥ. And that's what Shruti also is saying. Tadaha. That alone is said by Shruti also. And that is why he has already given the Upadesha in the previous verse. Give up the attachment to the gross, subtle and causal body and realize the oneness with Supreme. Okay. Upadesha is already given. Now he is just telling what happens. As long as you are attached to Shava, you will remain impure. When we realize the oneness with Shiva, then we become pure. Auspicious. Shiva, the word itself means auspicious. Shankara, the word itself means auspiciousness. Right? That is what he says, and he concludes this topic of means for Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The topic started verse number 368 and here in 397, 30 verses is completed the topic. If you remember, the topic started by saying Yogasya Prathamam Dwaram, Vang Nirodha, etc. Right? Then he explained how Ekanta Antarmukhta has to be there. Vang Nirodha means what? There actually that Vang Nirodha, he had taken it to the final meaning, where the dissolution of speech into mind and mind into intellect and intellect into totality, etc. he has explained. Then he took the topic of Vairagya. In Vairagya also he explained everything. Remember, there is a Vairagya at the lower level and the highest level of Vairagya where there is Anta Vairagya and Bahir Vairagya, etc., etc. was explained. Then he took the topic of Vairagya coupled with Bodha, coupled with this knowledge, like the two wings of the bird. If you want to reach that height where the creeper of liberation is there, if you want to reach on that top of the mansion, then you need both the wings, Vairagya and Bodha. Then he actually gave the steps of Samadhi Abhyasa. But within those steps, there was one important point which was coming again and again, and that is detaching from the lower and attaching to the higher. He brought that also. Then he went on to explain Akhanda Vritti. First he explained Akhanda Vritti as unbroken thought, how to maintain it. Then he explained Akhanda Vritti as the thought of unbroken self. And therefore he explained how that self is Akhanda. Then through Shruti, Yukti and Anubhuti, he explained how the self alone is. That's the only reality. Then today the verses that we have seen, he explains how there is absence of duality. He explains how all those verses which we have seen, no, absence of duality, Brahman alone is and Jiva is Brahman alone. That is to show absence of duality. And then last two verses he explains how to give up the not self. Why to give up not self? Why? Because it is malaMāyā and it is Shava. Therefore, right? So in this way, Shankaracharya has completed this topic. Now, the next topic that is taken is again the self is non-dual. To establish, as I was mentioning also, this is the most important point of Vedanta. And that's why further with few more verses, he explains that. The topic begins in the next verse 398 and will go on till 413. That is 15 verses, 16 verses. He will take that topic, which we will see in the upcoming sessions. Okay. Next session, as I told you, will be doubt clarification session. And we will see if the doubts, all the doubts that you have submitted, if they get over in one session, very good. If not, then 2 sessions. We will see according to the number of doubts. Okay. Chalo. We will conclude. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om.